am. Hello, everybody. This is us, the Final Fantasy Wiki, coming back to you with our semi-annual, vaguely monthly, 3-monthly something. There's no schedule to the show. There's no structure to the show. But good shows don't need structure. They don't need schedules. They don't need anything except for Final Fantasy news and content. That is what we are here to supply for you.
Write that on a t-shirt.
Yes, we have t-shirts. No, we don't. There will never be merch. We are.
Fandom sells t-shirts, but I don't think they're our t-shirts.
We could talk with our corporate overlords if we ever blow up for whatever reason. Until then, we are entirely non-profit and supported by you. You don't support us either, but you support us with love, and that's what's important.
You sometimes correct a typo on the website, and that's very valuable.
That is very valuable. Yes. Okay, so we are here, gathered now. My name's BlueHighwind, by the way, also known as Eric, and my two compatriots are.
I'm SomeColorMage, and for once in this entire E3 recording extravaganza, the sun is up where I live.
Nice, okay. I'm Technobliterator, also known as Joe.
Hi, Joe.
Hey.
Okay, so we're here for a couple of reasons, or, well, mostly one reason, which is that it was E3 last week. How did you like it?
I didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, if we're being entirely honest here, I think that managed to be the worst E3 ever. And last year, there wasn't even an E3, and that came out better. It's clear that nobody, especially not the ESA, were prepared for an all-online event, and it feels like almost everyone except Nintendo, who have been doing this for years and are used to it, fell flat.
Yeah,
well, I mean...
Oh, sorry. You go.
Oh, no, it's okay.
No,
okay,
no,
alright, so I think, to be fair to the gaming industry, we are at the point where, all the studios have basically been thrown a loop due to the pandemic, or have to work from home and stuff. So we are at the point where, it's been just over a year of that, and so they've all had this for a long time now, and so it's now starting to catch up with them. Whereas, the games they would have been working on before now, have mostly released, so they're just at a period of trying to get new games to come out soon. So I think I totally understand why the industry is in the state it's in.
I'm hearing some feedback noise from you.
Yeah, I noticed. Hold on, maybe it's what's happening outside. Clicks the window.
Okay.
Oh, but yeah, I understand why
we'll just keep rolling.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Is that sounding better?
Yes, that sounds better.
Sweet.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So I understand why it is the way it is, but there was another option, which is just delay E3 again.
Well, alright, so, obviously COVID was what happened, and, that sucks. And that could be the explanation for why we didn't get, Final Fantasy 16 or Kingdom Hearts 4, which is what everyone wants. But, I still think it was a good E3, just not when you're watching the regular streams. You needed to watch things like Day of the Devs, you needed to watch the Tribeca game stream, the PC gaming show. There was a lot of cool stuff. At this point that we are recording, those demos, there's a lot of demos for indie games like Tunic and Sable and Death Trash, and there's a ton of great games out there that you can play right now. I think by the time we post, those will all be taken down, because those are up until June 22nd. But it is possible for E3 to be at home, which is something that has never happened before. Usually you have to go all the way to LA.
Yeah, I'll admit I also didn't watch that much of E3 this time around. All I watched live were the 3 things that we streamed on the FFWiki, and also Devolver. So.
Well, the
Devolver
thing
sucked. They sucked. That was
when it
not
comes to
funny at
indie
all.
games, indie games weren't as affected just because of the fact that a lot of indie studios didn't even have an office anyway. So a lot those won't be affected too much. And the indie games, I will admit, do look pretty sweet. So if you're looking for that, then you won't be let down too much. But the big three that most people show up for, Nintendo.
Oh, wait, you
Xbox
totally died
was,
there, Techno. I think your gain's up a little too high. Lower it just a tiny bit.
Is this better?
Yeah, I think so, because you like spiked and then like died for a second.
Oops. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So Nintendo was fine. Nintendo was all right, and Xbox was okay. PlayStation wasn't even there.
Yeah.
I think everyone's suspecting that a state of play is coming sometime within the next month or so. But
Sony, but when?
Sony checked out of E3 even harder than Nintendo ever did. They're just,
Sony,
starting in 2019, they just decided, fuck this, we don't want to be a part of this anymore.
Do you think Sony, like, on purpose said fuck this year? Because, like, they were not here, and other things were, you know, they were not officially E3, but, like, specifically Sony was just like, no, we're not involved, we don't want to be involved, and them not being here almost feels, like, capricious, like, because, you know, a lot of companies had very little to show, but they were at least around to, you know, show the flag. Yes?
Right.
I think Sony is in the middle of trying to nail their own streaming strategy in the vein of Nintendo, and they're still figuring out what they want to do. Like, you know, about half of the state of play streams this year have been almost entirely focused on one single game.
Yep.
And yeah, so I think they really are trying to figure out how to do their own Nintendo Direct, and I think you know, after a few previous showings with E3, they're just not interested in what E3 has to offer anymore.
Right.
Meanwhile, Nintendo, while they decided that they didn't like doing the press conferences anymore, they still liked having the stage floor, and they even went above and beyond the other publishers to have their own fake stage floor, because that Nintendo Direct continued for like 3 hours after we finished, because they were still doing all the stage floor.
Were they actually stuff at the LA Convention Center? I didn't think to.
I don't know. I don't know where they were. I don't think anyone had the LA Convention Center rented out for this, so I doubt that that's where they were.
I don't know. That's actually very interesting, because I wonder if they just like they had the space rented out just to keep their deposit for next year. Like, you gotta keep it up to keep up your timeshare of the space. I have no idea. You know, 2022 is going to be weird, but E3 hopefully should be back in some form. We should probably. Oh wait! I had one other thing. Do you think Final Fantasy 16 was not here because Square Enix has just completely empty pockets, or do you think Sony wants ownership of that and they're trying to save it for one of their own state of plays?
I think it would make most sense if Sony are trying to push that game heavily, and it is going to next appear at whenever Sony are doing their event. And the reason for that is basically because if you think about when 16 was announced, it was announced as the first game in a Sony event. It was the first thing that came up, right?
That
and
was what was that? That was last fall's what was that? Paris Game Show?
Yeah, that was the like PS5 price reveal stream.
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, that's
right?
what that was.
And 16 was the first thing that showed up there, and they said, "Oh, by the way, this is a timed exclusive." So,
yeah, I do think Sony really wants to monopolize on the fact that Microsoft have done something this generation that, you know, for Final Fantasy at least, I think is causing them to strike out on Xbox, which is the cross-gen requirement.
Yeah.
I do not like. This is where a company that, for most of its existence, has been obsessed with graphical fidelity. You don't tell them that their big mainline game has to be compatible with previous gen, and that's why I think 16 was very easily a PS5 exclusive. It's why I think there's no peep of remake on Xbox, even after we've seen listings of it on the Epic Games Store.
Well, I do think it will eventually come to Xbox, though.
I think it will happen eventually, but I think Microsoft have to drop the cross-gen requirement first.
Or it could be...
That's entirely possible.
I'm sorry. It could possibly be the Xbox's Netflix system that they're doing. Because they want to make sure, like, all the big games that come out are part of Xbox... damn it, I'm blanking what they call Xbox Game Pass. That's it. Thank you.
It's Game Pass, yeah.
We were just talking about Apple Arcade, and that confused me. Yeah, you go.
Square are more than willing to play ball with that. Octopath is on game, but I think when it comes to the big ones, Microsoft is currently looking like not an option to them.
Yeah, but Octopath came out like 3 years later and was originally a Switch exclusive for much longer. And also, Octopath is not Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that it just makes too much sense for them to basically be packaging 16 with whatever like Sony's marketing is going on, right? It just makes sense for both companies involved, and also like I do think the Square Enix event, like once they basically said, oh, it's gonna be one of the games from one of our Western studios, that's the main thing we're showing off. I kind of wrote off 16 as not appearing after that. Like, I knew that their big game was going to be Guardians of the Galaxy, which, by the way, looks way better than Avengers, but that's not a very high mark. That's not a high bar at all to clear. So I just kind of wrote off after that, as assuming that 16 wouldn't show up.
Up your phone. We have real-time audio engineering happening here. Techno, please mute your phone. Oh my god.
I will do that.
Okay.
Sorry. It's
you know
now
what?
Do not disturb.
Okay. We are a podcast that comes to you. We come to you rough and raw and true. Other podcasts will try to go and edit all this stuff out. No, not us. You need to be here and feel all the bumps and all the bruises.
Our lack of professionalism makes us great and makes us authentic.
Yes. Speaking of ugly bumps and bruises and unfortunate, things, there were Final Fantasy games that actually did show up at E3. We'll get to the ugliest and bruisiest of them in a second, but first we should mention that there is a Final Fantasy new 2D Pixel HD, is what they're calling it, I believe. That is a collection of Final
or something.
Pixel Remaster. We should know this. Somebody should know this. Not me. I don't know. It
is Pixel Remaster.
Pixel Remaster. That's a specific branding. This is going to be, from what it looks like, the original versions of Final Fantasy 1 through 6, launching only on PC and mobile. And as far as I can tell, nothing else.
Okay, yeah. So they are very light on details about this, but I'm gonna be honest, I'm happy. Like, here's the thing. I've always wanted there to be a definitive version of my favorite one, which is Final Fantasy VI, that is available on modern platforms and easily accessible to new gamers, right? Because if you think about the current most accessible version of 6 is the port that everyone hates, right? Everyone hates the graphics on the port of 6 that's on mobile and on Steam now. So for them to have a remaster of it that's in a similar graphical style to the original, because it's a pixelated style that's kind of like just a little bit of a step up from the SNES days.
Are you sure? I really could not tell. Like they showed 30 seconds, and I could not tell you if that was any better than just any old ROM just running Final Fantasy 3 on the Super Nintendo.
Right, but nonetheless, it will look better than the Steam and mobile ports of the game that currently exist. There you go. Right, that's all I mean. Right?
Yeah,
I just think.
What I mean is why buy this if you could so easily get a ROM running on just about anything? And
I think you overestimate how easy it is to get a ROM running on just about anything. If you're talking about your average consumer.
Yeah, I could see a person, any old person not understanding and spending the money, but like, we're the hardcore collectors, and we want the best possible version of Final Fantasy VI. We want the GBA editions. We want the best music. We want that best version, and that best version just does not exist.
Well, that's the thing. Like,
absolutely, when it comes to 5 and 6 in particular, people largely, like the hardcore of the hardcore, largely take to just modding the Game Boy Advance version to get features more imperative. To get aesthetic features more in parity with the SNES version.
But that's the thing, like, if I say to a group of friends, I say to them, look, you have to play this game, it's Final Fantasy VI, it's the best one, right? Most casual gamers don't know this compared to 7, for instance. You know, you have to play this game, it's got a beautiful story, you know, it's got a really awesome main villain, it's really fun to play, you gotta play Final Fantasy VI. And they say, oh, okay, how should I play that? I was like, oh, well, I mean, all you need to do is you need to download a ROM for the game that you can find online. I mean, they got rid of the MU Paradise site, so I mean, you have to go shop around a little bit, and then you'll have to download an emulator for a GBA, and then you'll have to mod it, and then it will be playable. They were like, sorry, repeat those steps again, and then basically they're not gonna play this game if you tell them to go through those steps. Alternatively, you can say to them, oh, you can just, you know, play the mobile port. Even though we hate the graphics, you know, it looks ugly as hell. We all hate it, but play that because that's your only choice. Then they're still gonna be like, well, I mean, if you hate it, then I don't want to play it, right? So that's why, like, I think the importance of having a Final Fantasy VI. Oh, I say 6 in particular, but there's also an importance to having a 2D version of Final Fantasy IV, because keep in mind, like, the most accessible versions of 4 right now are the 3D port, which
and Final
is a
Fantasy
very difficult game.
And Techno, Final Fantasy 3 has never been available in the US or the West
never been
in
available.
2D.
Yeah, like there are only 3 versions of the original 3 out there. There's the NES original, which is Japan only, the Wii Virtual Console, which is Japan only, and the NES Mini, only on the Japanese NES Mini.
Was there a Wonder Swan version of Final Fantasy 3 hiding somewhere?
Oh, it got cancelled. Got cancelled.
Oh.
We have a screenshot of it on the wiki, but yeah, that's all that seems to remain of it.
Poor Wonder Swan. Oh well.
So basically, like, what I think is, even though I share the disappointment that we don't have many details about this, for instance, like, what version of 6 are we getting? Like,
exactly.
What's the translation? Is it Ted Woolsey or is it the GBA one? And you know, if you ask me, like, I think there is no best translation of 6 yet. I would rather a translation that takes the best bits of Woolsey and the best bits of the GBA one and puts them together. That's how I think.
Wait. Sorry, is there something, like, legitimately, like, wrong with the Final Fantasy VI translation? Because I know original Final Fantasy VII's translation, a lot of people have a lot of issues with that.
So with the original Final Fantasy VI translation, the only real things that are, like, kind of weird are just that, like, the item names, for instance, get shortened, and, like, the spell names are a little weird. Like, that's the only, like, quote-unquote issue with it. But that translation, for the most part, is a good translation. However, there were some lines that were introduced in the GBA version, like, compared to the original, that I think are slightly better. Like, so for instance, like, Kefka's line at the very end, when he says, you sound like lines from a self-help booklet. He says that in the original. They changed the line to be, bleh, you people make me sick. You all sound like a book, which is slightly
You sound like
different,
what? I'm sorry,
Techno,
it cut out just at the end. The quote.
You sound like lines from a self-help book.
Okay.
Right? Which is, like, slightly cleaned up from the original, but is, like, I just think flows a little better. And then there are ones like, so in the original, he said when he was bombing Thamasa, he said, I don't care for the appearance of this little hamlet, so burn it. Then the new line is, this little hamlet has too much boring and not enough burning. Torch them all. I prefer the GBA line, slightly, right?
I know people with translations are like, you know, they want the authenticity of it sounding the most like the Japanese. Though, again, translating and romanicizing, that's all as much art as it is science. There is no exact way to translate one language to another. Is one version, like, is the GBA version more accurate or is it less accurate?
The Ted Woolsey version is mostly more accurate. But what people prefer about it is two things. First of all, it's the fact that the Ted Woolsey version is a lot more like what's the term? It's like, you know, when
it's campier, definitely.
Well, that too. But I mean, like, you know, when like certain lines are delivered and like the line doesn't explicitly say what the character's thinking, but you can kind of like work it out from
it's subtle.
Whereas, yeah, it has a lot more subtlety to it compared to the GBA version. That's the first thing. The second thing is there's one particular line that's changed in the GBA version, which is a lot worse, unquestionably worse than the original. So,
is it that they removed Wake Up Chrono? Damn it.
Oh, no. No,
that's a whole different issue.
It's a line from Edgar, right? After he first meets Realm. In both versions, he asks Realm, "How old are you?" Right? And in the GBA version, he says like, "Let's hope you're around in 6 years." I think it was. It's like, okay. It's like,
no, I don't like that at all.
Right,
you could just cut that. You could cut that line entirely. Don't translate it.
Yeah, and he doesn't say that in the Ted Woolsey version. In the Ted Woolsey version, he says like, "Oh, you're not even a lady yet. I hope you survive," but not from the.
No, I don't. Like, I don't like that one either. No. Edgar, stop. Leave Realm alone. Leave that little girl alone, please.
But here's the thing, right? The Japanese translation isn't meant to imply anything dirty about it, right? It's basically just to say like, shit, we've got a kid wrapped up in this, right? This sucks, you know? Like, it's from the sense of like, I hope, you know, this kid actually gets to, you know, see her adult years. Not, I hope this kid becomes an adult so I can fuck her in 8 years, right? Which is what the GBA line implies. And
I want to move on right now from this topic. This is bad.
I don't blame you.
This is the worst place we've ever gone in all the years we've been doing this. This is terrible.
All you need to know is the Woolsey translation of that particular line is way better and way less egregious than the GBA version of that line, which was so awkward. Anyway, yeah. So we don't have details like what kind of translation we're getting for 6. We don't know, you know, for instance, like, are the advanced bonus dungeons being added into the game? We don't know that. But because we've seen from the one screenshot we have of Final Fantasy 1 suggests they're reverting back to the very, very original battle system for it. Because Final Fantasy 1, the ports of the game include MP, whereas this version of Final Fantasy 1 does not include MP in the screenshot of the UI whatsoever, which would suggest regressing back.
Yes. Although it should be noted that these are clearly unfinished shots, because as I've seen at least one person point out on the Discord server, the one shot of Final Fantasy IV fighting the Demon Wall was using child radio,
also they showed 30 seconds of this. They have nothing to show.
Yeah.
I even looked up like whatever press reports they have nothing. They have nothing to say. They greenlit this project weeks ago, it seems like, and they have nothing.
Yeah, and
it's too
like
early.
6 was completely absent from those shots of the game. So we have no idea if this is anywhere close to final. Although, if they are, please fix the English fonts. I know Square seems to have stopped caring about this in ports, but a good font actually kind of matters. And the shots that we showed, this was really stupidly thin and shit.
Okay.
like this was even a problem with Final Fantasy IV on PSP. They picked a font that was kind of okay, but whenever it came to showing numbers, they used the same font as I think it's the same font they used in Japan, so everything was double width because English fonts in English characters in Japanese tend to be really wide. And it looked terrible, and it just seems they never care when it comes to these kinds of things. But
Final Fantasy IX's font.
Yeah, but legibility is actually kind of important when it comes to something that's shown entirely in text.
Yeah. Final Fantasy IX's text on... damn it. Please, sorry, I have to complain about Final Fantasy IX's font. It looks so bad. It looks so bad on Steam. It looks awful.
After I correct myself,
yes.
I got Edgar's line wrong from the Woolsey version. It was actually just, you've grown up too fast, lighten up, okay?
Okay.
So it doesn't imply anything about her getting older. Anyway,
okay, all right.
Sorry,
That's better. That's better.
Yeah. Carry on.
No, I had to complain about Final Fantasy IX's font on PC. There actually are mods you can go and get to fix that. It just looks like shit. And Final Fantasy IX has a very specific font for a reason on PlayStation 1. It looks cool. I don't know how legible it is or anything like that, but man, do I hate that font. It looks like fucking shit.
The thing is, like, the PC ports of a lot of the games are basically just like them porting the mobile port of the original game over to PC, which doesn't always work out too well. But the reason they do that, I believe, is just because, like, Japan has a much smaller PC gaming market, but a huge mobile market. Which is why, by the way, this game has yet to be announced for consoles. But it's gonna come to consoles. Like, we know it is. Like, it's just a matter of when rather than if.
I mean, the Switch sells very well in Japan.
A lot of Japanese devs have picked up on that PC is important, but Square just doesn't really care.
Yeah, they don't.
Right.
Except for Final Fantasy XIV, which I guess is very well supported on PC. As
well, Final Fantasy XI, Final Fantasy XIV, Dragon Quest X, due to their nature, they have to be supported on PC, but they were all still made for a specific platform and work more naturally with that platform than sometimes PC. Like, Final Fantasy XI, it's kind of was because of how slow it is, but it was designed for PS2, and 14 was designed for PS3. Now it's designed for PS4, but there's not much difference there. And Dragon Quest X was designed for Wii, I think. But yeah, those are all games that also have to pay close attention to PC because, just by the nature of MMOs, and in the case of 11, that's the only platform still running.
Oh, I should also mention Dragon Quest was not at this E3, but it did have a big event a couple of weeks ago. And Dragon Quest 12. That'll happen in 2026, I guess. And
that was also a rather uncomfortable stream. I feel sorry for the translator of that, because she was clearly not prepared for any of that, and they were talking so fast it's just impossible to catch up.
Yeah, I didn't watch. I watched the day after, and there's a Dragon Quest III remake in the style of Octopath Traveler that looks great. That's what everyone really wanted. That was the wildest fantasy. They're gonna do Final Fantasy VI like Octopath Traveler, guys! And now they're not. Square Enix doesn't care.
Yeah, that wasn't going to happen in the near future, because they kind of implied that the Dragon Quest III remaster is a test run for this kind of thing. So, for all the people expecting all six of the 2D Final Fantasies to be remade, which was rumored for quite a bit. Yeah, it wasn't going to be in that style because they're still seeing if people will accept that style for remakes with Dragon Quest III.
So if you want Final Fantasy VI to look great, you have to buy Dragon Quest III. They are holding you hostage.
Basically, yeah.
Yep, you have
to. Basically. I will say that, like, I'm perfectly happy with the graphical style from what I can tell of Pixel Remaster. I'm happy with it. But, again, like, I would not be, I'm not like a shill for it. So if they were to make a better looking port down the line, yeah, I'd pick it up and I'd be happy with that. Right now, I'm just happy that I now have a game of Final Fantasy VI that I can point to where when someone's telling me, you know, what's so great about this game, blah, 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 right, I can point to them and say, just download it here, right, and this is the version you should play.
And I would
I
like...
think the graphical stuff for these largely looks fine. I mean, at the moment we're largely going off guesswork, but a lot of the art appears to be based on the art book from a few years ago, FF Dot, and it looks fine. My
FF
main
Dot? Sorry.
Yes, that's the name of the book. The main problem I think with it is that they've toned down the shading a bit, which is a natural consequence of having more colors to work with. But I think they went too far, and like characters seem a bit more flat than they should be. Because like in the SNES games, the further away leg and arm tended to be quite noticeably darker, giving some depth to the character sprites. But I don't really get that impression from what we see in like that art book.
Okay. There's not enough to go on. I'd say making any conclusions about this. They showed 30 seconds. Like, we've managed to get 20 minutes of content out of this, and I'm impressed by us managing to do that.
It's ultimately just guesswork at this point.
It was a bad trailer. Like, just, if you have that little to show, don't show anything at all, I'd say. Anyway, speaking of bad trailers, we should probably move on to Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, aka We're Here to Kill Chaos.
Yeah, so Sons of the Patriots Final Fantasy Origin is easily the worst Final Fantasy I have seen in a long time, right?
Worst looking, you mean,
like,
right?
I mean, worst looking, yeah. I mean, I have never been this, like, put off and unexcited by a Final Fantasy game. But I will say that I have heard very, very good things about the combat from the demo.
Oh, you haven't played it?
Yeah,
I have not played it.
Okay.
The game plays really well.
Me and SomeColorMage played it.
The performance is currently really bad, which is probably why this demo is PS5 exclusive. Because I feel like if they released a demo on PS4 or Xbox, this would be an even bigger disaster of PR than it was already.
I mean, the demo didn't work at all.
Unplayable.
Yes,
it was unplayable for 2 days.
It was an unplayable demo. Like it was supposed to launch with the show. Like they did their E3 conference, and then like 45 minutes later, you're supposed to be able to play this demo. Yeah, and you couldn't.
Put out immediate. They put out immediately after the E3 show. The demo will be out 6 a.m. Japan time, and then it just kind of wasn't.
Yep.
So let's start with the positives first, right? So you guys who have both played the game, please walk me through the combat and what works about it. Because what I'll say about this is that I have not played a Dark Souls game. The closest I played to it was Jedi Fallen Order. And although I did enjoy that game, like, I mostly enjoyed it for the story. The gameplay was alright, but I hated the lightsaber combat. Not because it's bad, I'm just no good at it. So the reason I didn't play this game is just I suck at Souls-like games. Like, they scare the shit out of me. Like, they just seem like they would be way too hard, and I just do not think I would enjoy them. So walk me through why these games work.
Well, all right. I'm not a Dark Souls guy either, by any extent. I played maybe a quarter of Bloodborne before I got so mad at it I like wanted to throw my PlayStation 4 out a window. But this this does play in some way similar to that Star Wars game in that it has like a stagger meter that you got to break. Maybe they call it the stance meter. I don't quite know exactly the thing. This demo is just one dungeon with your 3 dude bros who look like they both just got right out of the gym. They got out of the gym and they're ready to kill Chaos. Chaos. Are you Chaos? Because I'm gonna kill you. Chaos.
As a gym bro myself, I'm insulted by the comparison. But
this is the aesthetic they chose. You go around and you kill some goblins, you kill some bombs. It's reasonably challenging. I mean, it's not brutal. There is an easy mode.
Are the enemies basically FF1 enemies in this like art style?
They look like generic.
They've got greater variety than that. Like there weren't bombs in the first game.
Yeah, they look like just standard Final Fantasy things. You do bust their fucking heads open onto your knee when you break their stance meter, and they insta-die. And then they explode in red crystal, which could easily be gore, but I guess that's a step too far. This game is rated M, by the way. So then you go and you meet Garland. Yes, sorry. What's up?
And you are definitely encouraged to do a lot of the crystal explosion kills and such, because not only does that restore a lot of MP, which you basically have the special gauge you have to, that's segmented. You have to use up one segment to use any attack that's tied to the R2 button, the best way to get MP back is to perform these kills, because not only does it reward you with a lot of MP, it also increases the size of that gauge up to 6 full segments.
Yes, and you have like a super mode that you want to be in just about constantly, and that costs an MP gauge to launch that. Also, as I found that when you explode enemies, it kind of like does an area of effect. It kind of like stuns everything around you, which is very good, because one thing you want to do in these kinds of games is not get surrounded, and you can't just button mash, and you have to kind of be strategic. But in this, if you're busting a fucking bomb wide open, you can be as dumb as you need to be. The demo only...
And also,
yes?
Also with that, if there are multiple broken enemies in your vicinity, I'm not sure if you only need to press circle once or you have to mash, but everything after the first enemy gets killed rather quickly, like you pretty much skip the animation.
Now, the demo does get technical and difficult when it comes to the boss, who is Garland, and I could not beat him. I failed to kill Chaos. SomeColorMage, could you beat Garland?
I had to turn it down to easy.
Oh, you had to restart the whole demo in easy?
Yeah, I mean, easy, I went in easy, the enemies aside from Garland are a complete cakewalk. Okay. Actually, we shouldn't be calling him Garland, because you might notice when you get to the boss, his HP meter, it doesn't say Garland, it says Chaos?
Chaos with a question mark.
Right.
It's hilarious.
But yeah, Garland can still be fairly challenging, even on easy. I guess it's mostly because I don't play a lot of Souls-like games. Because apparently, you talk to some veterans, his tells are super obvious, and you can just block nearly everything.
His tells are easy, but his second form has this ice combo that I cannot deal with whatsoever.
So that's something that people have actually managed to puzzle out. If you hit him with enough fire spells during that phase, it cancels his sword.
I figured that, but I don't like using magic in this game at all. Techno, to launch magic, you have to stop completely, then go in this little radial menu. There's multiple job classes, by the way, that your main character, Jack, has that you could switch at any point, so I spent most of the time as Fighter, but he also learns Black Mage and Dragoon in this. When you're in Black Mage, you can go and use magic, which again, you have to stop dead, make sure nothing hits you. Then you gotta go and charge up from Fire to Fira to Faraga, and make sure you're picking the right spell out of the radial menu. There's all like 7, flavors of spell in there, and then go and fire it. And it feels terrible. Like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to use the magic. I feel helpless doing it. You are sitting duck. Like, it's even worse than using magic in Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Wow. Wow, okay.
So, my biggest issue is that I think there's 2 dodge steps. Like there's a dodge roll and a kind of like sidestep, and I don't know how you pick one from the other. And that's very specific with Garland.
I'm not sure either. I think it's an issue with single versus double tap, but I couldn't quite tell.
I'm freaking out and button mashing probably. That sounds like me. I play a lot of Kingdom Hearts, so you hit buttons very fast.
Yeah.
Anyway, the demo, if you actually beat it, just ends with Jack punching Garland in the face a lot, and then it just ends. Garland is played by Christopher Sabat, who I think played him in Dissidia. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's Square Enix actually bringing back voice actors, which is odd after they replaced all of Final Fantasy VII's cast.
Although I think the decision to replace Final Fantasy VII's cast was not a bad decision at all.
No, it was a bad cast, but still, like there were good voice actors you could have kept that they did not for odd reasons. Anyway, a lot of people hate Final Fantasy Origin Stranger in Paradise because it's got a bad name. Also, Jack wears a T-shirt, and that was kind of a controversy.
Here's like
replace that T-shirt within 5 minutes.
Yes, you can.
Here's my biggest complaint.
Like the very first treasure chest you come across, I think it's guaranteed to be a new shirt. So
yeah,
here's my biggest complaint with the game, because I'm able to chalk like a lot of the creative decisions down to the fact that I just genuinely am not into like some of the stuff they're doing here. So like I'm not as into the idea of like, oh, let's make a mature Final Fantasy game that's like looks really dark and edgy and whatever. Like that's not my thing, but if you want to make a game like that, that's fine. You know, there are plenty of people who will really dig the idea of Final Fantasy being taken in a mature direction. You know, there are plenty of people who like...
Is this mature, though, is the other question?
Well, okay, so I'll get to that. But, like, there are plenty of people who like the idea of that. So, like, Type 0 has plenty of fans, and a lot of people are really excited for 16, and I can totally see why.
This is different than those games. This is angry and macho and aggro in a way that I have not seen be very popular in video games since like the PlayStation 3 era.
Well, right. Well, I'll get to that. Well, okay, so I'll get to that now, actually. Yeah, like the problem I have with it is just that it's clumsy as hell. Like, I can't tell if they're trying to make a comedy and they're trying to make fun of, like, fucking Shadow the Hedgehog and Dirge of Cerberus, games that came out, like...
Chaos Control!
Games that came out like 15 years ago. It seems like an odd time to make fun of them. Alright.
Hey, Vincent, as we know, Vincent Valentine is Shadow the Hedgehog. They're the same person.
Just like, yeah, I mean, it's just clumsy as hell. I can't, like, I don't know. It's just really bad the way they did it. So that's my first complaint. But my biggest complaint is the fact that, you know, why the fuck are all the three main characters the most boring, generic white men?
Wait, no. Only one of them, maybe two of them are white. And Jack,
okay.
That's a whole can of worms as to what race an anime character is supposed to present as. I'm just step away from that. But one character is explicitly dark-skinned.
Fair enough. All right, I'll take.
And then they named him Ash.
You know.
But the three...
He got to moisturize, all right? Your skin can get ashy.
Most boring, generic-looking male characters that I've ever seen, right? Would it kill them to introduce a single female character? Because, like, we went from fucking Final Fantasy 13, where the lead was a female character. And don't get me wrong, like, there are plenty of legit criticisms of Lightning as a character, and there are also plenty of people who love her. I'm not going to wade into that. But how have we gone from that to every single game since then hasn't even included them as playable characters at all, right? Well, 15, right? 15 had the weakest writing of female characters the series has ever had. Like, ever. And we're going back to the fucking NES games.
We'll have to go and check the tapes on that one. I'm not 100% sold on that.
It's extremely weak, and none of them have a main role.
I think there need to be a few points of order here. First of all, Nomura has already said there are more party members than just these. that
Okay, thank fuck
you're
for
going
that.
to switch them out, and you will actually be able to customize the other party members in the full release and such. And the other thing is that I saw some people use this as an excuse to start throwing out, oh no, Square Enix must hate female characters. 13 must have ruined them on the idea of having female main characters. Do you know how stupid that take sounds within a week of Integrate coming out?
And Forspoken being their other big game coming out very soon, which has a female main character.
Okay, so we're going to get to Integrate later on and how good Integrate was. Don't get me wrong. But here's my problem, right? 15, not only did you have weak writing of the female characters, abysmal writing of the female characters, you also just cancelled the DLC in which they'd actually become playable. 16, I haven't seen a single indication that they're having any female main characters. In fact, I don't have any indication that they have any playable character other than the main guy, who looks a lot better than the Stranger of Paradise people, but still is just a boring fucking white male motherfucker.
I don't know what race they're actually aiming for with this character.
Okay, fair enough. Just
I agree that
anime character.
I agree that 15 in particular was a failure in that regard, but with 16, we've still only got nothing but one trailer. So yeah. I can't say anything definitive on that. For the same reason, I probably shouldn't have gone on all that stuff about Pixel Remaster earlier. It just seems too early to make that call.
Which I will take both of those points as reasonable points. My problem is the fact that, it just seems, at least on the new games, with the exception of 7 Remake, it seems like a massive step backward. And I'm tired of it. I'll be honest, I'm just really tired of the direction that they've gone in for their new titles. And this just seems like, I don't know. All I'm going to say is, look, here's the thing. Final Fantasy has a very broad fan base, right? And there are going to be people who will be happy with what Stranger of Paradise represents.
Not a lot so
personally,
far.
Not a lot so far. Me personally, I'm gonna sit in my 7 Remake corner and that will be probably the only thing I'm really, really excited for. I'm excited for 16, but I'm only really, really excited for seeing what happens with 7 Remake. Okay. I'm not happy with the direction the rest of the series seems to be going.
Okay, Techno, I really need to butt in.
14's good.
Okay, I really need to butt in with the whole male character business, because maleness can mean quite a number of different things, and I would say Final Fantasy 15, for all the issues that game has, and that's a game I don't particularly like, does have a somewhat more nuanced view of masculinity and can actually show male bonding in good and positive ways. And there's a certain vulnerability and depth to that, which so far we have not seen in Stranger of Paradise. It just looks like the dumbest fucking shit. It looks like what was that game on PlayStation 3? Kane and Lynch. For some reason, Kane and Lynch came to mind when I was playing this, or when that trailer happened.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I absolutely 100% agree with that. One of the reasons why Final Fantasy VI is one of my favorite isn't just that the female characters are excellent, but also the male characters, the writing in terms of the masculinity on them is way ahead of its time, because they're allowed to be vulnerable and emotional and feel grief and etc. without ever being seen as weak by it. They're never the narrative never treats them as treats this as a weakness or anything, So I absolutely agree, and I do think 15 shows a great nuanced take on masculinity. Agreed with that. This game does not.
We don't. We just don't know yet, because we saw one dungeon with one boss. For all we know, I don't know. This is supposed to go and sell us on that aesthetic, so obviously this is what you're supposed to be taking away from it. But there could be more here, maybe. I imagine there has to be more than Jack than just I'm gonna kill chaos.
Yeah.
I don't believe that this is a. He's not director, but Tetsuya Nomura is a producer, and that still has a very strong effect on the tone. In fact, creative producer probably has a stronger effect on the general tone of the work than the director does. But I do not believe that the man who controls a large amount of the plot of the Kingdom Hearts series would play just plain anger straight. We've seen what happens when he makes a character that does that. He's the final boss of Kingdom Hearts 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, Sora and Riku came from this same guy. And there is...
Yeah, I mean, I'm
there's
sure
a lot
that,
there.
like,
There's a lot there between those two.
Maybe this game will have an interesting story of how Jack, you know, eventually overcomes the way he is now. Like, maybe that'll be kind of fun to watch. I'll just say that, like, the first impression I have of this game is just extremely unappealing to me.
It's a bad first trailer.
I like this thing.
Well, like, I agree that if the writing is as thin throughout the whole game as it was in this demo, it wouldn't even be fun.
Yeah.
It'd just be a slog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess...
like, it's just made a very, very bad first impression. And my first impression of this is I'm not going to touch it.
I mean, we should also mention there is a female character who talks in this trailer. It's Princess Sarah.
Yeah, which is Sarah, right?
Yeah, she all she does is describe Garland's armor. And one other thing, we have not mentioned that Team Ninja is making this game. They're the guys behind Neo and I mean, if you want to go into bad gender politics, they also made Metroid Other M, which
they did make Dissidia Final Fantasy NT, which was a very, very flawed game. Right?
Oh my god, that game!
How much of an achievement is
I find it hard to hold Other M against Team Ninja specifically because a lot of the bad decisions on that came from the top. Which and like I'm not going to forever say Sakamoto is a terrible person because Samus Returns was basically another M apology tour.
And Metroid Dread looks great. The new one that's coming out.
Oh yeah,
best looking AAA game of E3 as far as I'm concerned.
But yeah, Team Ninja delivered exactly what was wanted from them for Other M, and the result of that was not good. But I mean, technically, it's a fine game. It's just that the gameplay loop and the writing were both horrible.
I forgot. This segue, this joke I can make. There was actually Endwalker news a couple months ago, or maybe a month ago, and they announced Mel Vieira. So in some way, the karma scales had to get balanced. So you get Mel Vieira, and you get Jack, who's here to kill chaos. You know, it all adds up in one way or the other. You know, everything's... You know what? Final Fantasy's in a better spot than it's been in many years, even with this dumbass game. There's always been dumbass Final Fantasy games. It happens.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like, I'm not happy with the new games that have been coming out that haven't been 7 or 14. Well, okay, I've been unhappy with the games that aren't a multiple of 7, but you know, like the thing that's great about Final Fantasy is there are so many different games of so many different types of things. You know, there's a Final Fantasy for everyone out there, and Stranger of Paradise is not a Final Fantasy for me.
What is that title, by the way? Stranger of Paradise. It doesn't.
Yeah, what the
is this?
It's been good at titles.
It's been theorized to be an isekai. Maybe this guy is from our planet and just landed in Final Fantasy land.
Pretty much explicit. It's pretty much explicitly in isekai.
Okay. I'm just saying that if I landed in Final Fantasy land, I would do something different with my hair. You know, I'd finally have... You're finally ready. Like, in this world, you have to fit in. You gotta dye your hair blue and have it long like this Shin Megami Tensei 5 protagonist, who looks awesome.
I think I'll end on the note that, I have a theory about the game, which is that Jack, you know, you see in the demo that he puts on a piece of armor. By the end of the game, he's going to put on the full piece of armor, and he's going to look like the Warrior of Light, and we're going to be so disappointed that the Warrior of Light started out like this. Okay. But that'll be the completion of his character arc.
I don't think he's meant to be the Amano Wall, because
no, he's not. He's explicitly not supposed to be that guy.
Yeah, but like first of all, Nomura respects Amano too much to touch his designs. That's something we've known for a while. He barely changes characters in Dissidia. He deliberately avoids putting Amano characters in Kingdom Hearts because he doesn't want to have to redraw them. The one he was forced to add, he did very little too. And also, people have noticed that these three guys that they've been showing off, they kind of bear a bit of resemblance to the three party members in old art of FF1 that are not the big one. They're not the one that we know as the Warrior of Light.
Well, the thing with Final Fantasy 1 is that cast was supposed to be, in a lot of ways, you fill in who these people are. So it would almost make sense if these were like character creation figures, but that's not. You have to play with Jack. Does anyone else have any final thoughts on Stranger of Paradise?
Yeah, I think that kind of like shot my theory down, but that's all right.
That's fine.
I mean, I just think that even if you don't like this, it still looks better for Square than the Crystal Tools era or the fucking Luminous Studio era. I guess you can just say that no matter what, as long as Square stop being obsessed with their own engines, they're better off than they were a decade ago.
I think this is made in Unreal. Stranger of Paradise, I think, is made in Unreal 4. I'm just assuming. I haven't actually checked. I just assume it's Unreal 4. My last thought is that the main character being Jack just reminds me so much of Raiden from Metal Gear, and I'm just like,
yes,
yeah. I can't not think immediately of Typhoon Sam in Metal Gear Rising. Show me a good time, Jack. And
Metal Gear Rising was an excellent game.
If that's the case, the one-handed sword type that they've said they're going to have, that better be a good time.
Yeah, I want the energy of this game. You could go and have all that macho bullshit energy, but if you just go even further with it, you could go to Metal Gear Rising, and it could be a really great game. So,
yeah, if they did that, I'd be happy with it. I would take back everything I just said in this whole segment and be like, yeah.
There's does this game have any kind of release date, or is it just like 2022? We're guessing.
It's next year, sometime next year.
Yeah.
So
Sometime
anywhere between 6 and 18 months from now.
Yeah. So
I think that if they were to put hard release dates on anything right now, it would just come and bite them in the ass, because like things are so uncertain, given we're like just approaching the end of the pandemic, and in Japan they haven't even like vaccinated at all. So who knows what's happening there with regards to their
I would also say
situation.
I'm expecting later in next year rather than sooner, because performance-wise that demo is kind of rough, and if it was just next gen, I guess it's current gen now, that would probably be not too far off, but this also has to run on PS4 and Xbox One.
Oh, speaking of performance,
after what happened with Cyberpunk 2077, I am happy with them to have just fluid release dates until like a month before it's out or something like that. Yeah. It wouldn't upset me.
Okay, that'll be out when it's out. I mean, they've shown one location and nothing else, so who knows how much is even ready to show or on any level produced. We should move on, because we actually are fans of Final Fantasy. You may not know that, considering we spent the last hour mostly being unhappy.
Yeah.
I mean, there are ups and downs, and luckily there were ups this week as well. Because last Friday, specifically, we had the Final Fantasy Intergrade, Final Fantasy VII Intergrade version come out, which is available now on PlayStation 5. You can go and play Final Fantasy VII Remake, the first part, with all the PlayStation 5 bells and whistles. And with that came a new intermission episode, I think is what they're calling it now. This starring Yuffie Kitsuragi, everyone's favorite ninja from Final Fantasy VII, who mostly spent the PlayStation 1 era on the airship with Cait Sith, because for some reason people didn't like her. I don't quite remember why people hated her. And if I ever said anything,
I do. So Yuffie is written so much worse in the PS1 game, right? So there's a line in the PS1 game where so after Barrett has his backstory where he explains about what happened to Coral, like Yuffie's line after that is, "I'm not sympathizing with Barrett. He never should have trusted Shinra." Which like when you know the whole context behind Yuffie and why she is the way she is, you can kind of understand where she's coming from.
Oh, wait.
But basically, you read most of her lines in the game, and she just comes across like a brat. She just kind of comes across as annoying, and like just, you know, she's just not very likable. In this game, she is done so much better. It sounds like you want to say something, so I'll let you say something.
I just remembered why people hate Yuffie. It's because her most important quest in Final Fantasy VII involves her stealing all your materia, and you have a long, very, very long puzzle segment to get it back. That's why people hate Yuffie.
Yeah,
that was it.
Just due to the structure of Final Fantasy VII, Yuffie and Vincent don't really get much character outside of their side quests, and while Vincent's is kind of okay, Yuffie's is actively annoying.
Yeah. So here's the thing, like Yuffie's character arc does exist in Final Fantasy VII, but 90% of players are gonna miss it, and the reason for that is because, you know, there's the side quest where she steals all your materia, which sucks, but the character arc doesn't really complete until she fights her father when she goes up the massive tower, right? And that's a side quest where only Yuffie can fight like 5 bosses before she finally fights her father and has that dialogue at the end, right? So most people aren't gonna see that character arc followed through with. But if you look in the game, and if you look like logically when you can fight that boss battle, and how she changes thereafter, like after that, she basically becomes a much more loyal party member. She becomes a much more helpful and reliable person. You know, she's like, she helps rescue Barrett and Tifa when they're set to be executed by Shinra after the weapons are revealed, right? So, you know, she becomes like much more reliable and a much better party member after that.
Well, Techno, we should
players are gonna miss that.
Yeah, Techno, we should mention that Yuffie originally is a optional character, so if you miss her around Fort Condor in the original Final Fantasy VII, she could not show up at all throughout the game. So
indeed,
most of her scenes throughout the game are entirely like, she'll just have one line added into the background because for all you know, she might not even be there.
Right.
Yeah, like they do try to push her on you because like the further you get into the world, the greater the chance of her showing up when you walk through forests, but she's still completely missable.
Oh wait, she can show up at any forest? I thought it was only the Fort Condor one.
Yeah, she can show up
from then on. Like she'll never show up on the Midgar continent, but once you get to Fort Condor, every like area of the world after that, her chance of showing up increases.
I had no idea. I always thought that it was only that area because every time I've ever played this game, I immediately went and recruited Yuffie. Wow, I had... All right, well, I wrote a whole walkthrough about this game, and I didn't know that shit. All right. It's a bad walkthrough.
Your walkthrough did mention that. Your walkthrough did mention she can be found later on, so you probably just forgot that fact. But anyway,
who knows where I got that knowledge from at this point.
But anyway, so fun fact about Yuffie, the original quest to acquire her would have been totally different. Like, the original plan was that basically there are several wanted posters that you can find around the world, which have a wanted poster for a bounty hunter, an ex-soldier named Yuffie Kisaragi, right? And those wanted posters would include her level and her stats, and basically the level and stats she has of when you acquire her depend on the last poster you saw. So the side quest was going to be about finding the right wanted poster to get the best Yuffie and then recruit Yuffie, which would have been way too
terrible. And I'm glad they got rid of it.
I do kind of
agree.
I do kind of dig her old backstory of being a soldier, because we've never actually seen a female all-cap soldier in Final Fantasy.
Yeah, she was originally an ex-soldier who actually fought alongside Cloud and Sephiroth. But then she became a bounty hunter, and she was going to be 25 years old, so she changed completely. But she became a bounty hunter after she left Soldier, and she was on the hunt for Cloud and Sephiroth. But then when she found Cloud, she was like, "Oh, I'll just join Cloud instead, so I can fight Sephiroth."
Okay. We should probably detail this actual DLC now that we've set up Yuffie and her history. This is a 2-chapter DLC that takes place basically concurrently with Final Fantasy VII Remake. You play as Yuffie.
Yeah,
Yes?
Yep.
Yeah, it starts just after after Cloud's fallen into the church, and ends with the fall of Sector 7.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
yes. None of the things in the chapter are like too massively essential to the stories of Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's a side story that happens concurrently with it, and it's a nice little story, but you won't like lose out too much, and you won't be like completely not knowing what the hell's going on if you didn't play this, from my understanding.
Yeah, we should mention, well, I remember months ago I had my worry because this entire thing you're playing as just Yuffie, and eventually you do pick up another party member. This is a guy named Sonin, who is another Wutaian soldier. He fights with a big, it's not even a spear, it's more like a rod. What is it exactly?
Yeah, it's
a staff.
It's a staff, that's the word, yes. He and Aerith, they both fight with staves. He is mostly, you know, like, he's entirely AI, which is worrisome for this game, but he actually does a pretty good job of mostly, you know, pulling all the enemy aggro, and they'll just go and focus on him, while meanwhile you're Yuffie with your ninja star abilities and you'll throw from the background. So it actually works pretty well.
I think it does help that you do get pretty fine control over his AI with his abilities, because he has a provoke on ATB instead of having to use, which just happens on cooldown.
Yeah.
And one of his moves, less an attack and more direct the AI to just keep attacking this one person. And then there's Synergize, which basically
I love Synergize.
Which basically takes control of him, which without taking direct control of him, basically takes control of him and makes him do abilities at the same time as Yuffie.
Oh, it's so fun! It's such a great mechanic. I'm so glad they added it. Like
now,
Synergize, and I can't wait to see like if they have synergizing with like other party members later on. So let's say like, oh, if my party includes Cloud and Tifa, then I can do this really cool synergize ability where Cloud like swing his Buster Sword around and Tifa will jump off of it and kick an enemy, right? Or like, oh, let's say it's got like Barret and I don't know, Red 13, where Barret will charge up an attack and then Red 13 will like just run in afterwards and like just circle the enemy or something like that to like keep the enemy in place so that Barret can get a good shot at it. Like, I can't wait to see if they do more stuff like that, because like when the trailer came out and they said, oh, there's a synergize ability, I was like, I didn't know how it would work. But knowing that like you can turn it on and off and it kind of like just amplifies your existing abilities is a really cool idea.
I love when oh, sorry, you can go, SomeColorMage.
I know that I will be disappointed if the synergized skills don't make it into a future installment, because Yuffie's 2 starter attacks, if they're in synergize and Sonon also has an ATB bar, they get upgraded into dual attacks. And one of her weapons, I don't know, one of Sonon's weapons, I don't know if it's on the other ones because I am bad at this game and am terrible at hard mode, so I can't get the final weapon level. One of the weapons has an ability that allows them to synergize their limit break. Just do
wow!
Which is really good.
Cool.
Oh,
it's so cool.
I gotta find a video of that.
Pull that off.
Yes.
It's hard to pull it off, but it's cool as hell.
I should mention. Damn it! I want to say this. Ugh. All right. When I want to say, like, when you synergize both Yuffie and Sonin together, and you do a regular attack, you can just hit the attack button over and over, and they will just keep leapfrogging on the enemy over and over again. It looks fucking hilarious. It just tears through their stagger bar if they're at all like what's that? What's actually that stat called? Pressured. That's it. Yeah. If they're pressured, you could just go and eat right through that and just keep landing attack after attack. I thought it was glitched at first, but apparently that's actually how it's supposed to look.
No, I think they're gonna patch that out in future games. Like, I don't think we're gonna have that ability again. Like, it's way too broken. But I think that like the other thing, like beyond just synergy, Yuffie is just legit really, really fun to play, to the point where I think I enjoyed her like almost as much as I enjoy playing Tifa. Like, because the ninja star weapon is just so fun to use, because like, you know, you can use it both in melee and in ranged attacks, and it's just the way that they like make that so seamless between them, and the way that Yuffie's playstyle is just so, she's just super fun to play, just regular Yuffie, right? So I legit think that like I'm gonna put Yuffie in my party. Like, when I get to the later parts, right? I think I'm gonna put her in, because she's just stupidly fun to play. Like, it's just the versatility of it all. It's the agility. It's how they did a great job of designing Yuffie's playstyle. Like,
I think
so fun to play.
She works very, very well as, you know, she might be a bit tuned like to be OP, considering she's your one playable character, so she could basically do everything you need. She's got a very good dodge roll, which might be better than every other character in the game. I find that it actually works.
I think it's about the same as Tifa's.
Okay.
Well, not only that, she has that ATB dodge, which refunds itself if you actually dodge an attack with it.
Yes.
And she has the perfect block.
Yes, that's really good too. If you block at the right time, if you get the certain weapon abilities, you'll get, I think, like Shell and Protect, or whatever they're calling it this time.
Yeah.
One of the weapons is Protect and Shell, another one's Regen, and the third one is bonus A2B.
Nice.
And the DLC weapon does not have a precision block bonus.
It's just like, Yuffie's just so cool to play, and I never had Yuffie in my party for the original Final Fantasy VII, but I'm definitely including her in the later parts now. Like, holy shit.
Like, the DLC weapon is actually kind of useless, because the ability is kind of cool. It's a multi-target throw.
This is the Cactuar thing?
Yeah, the Cactuar. That's Cactuar.
Yeah, that was $10. I wasn't buying that.
It's a crit weapon. Its attack stats don't grow at all. It doesn't appear to have Mug. It doesn't appear to have a precision defense ability. So basically, it's good for the first half of Chapter 1, but once you've learned Cactuar Caper, you don't really want to use it anymore.
Yeah, it sucks. It's not very good. I mean, I wasn't gonna buy it.
One boss. Yeah, with the exception of basically one boss, like, the whole game is fairly easy. And I don't know how much of that is just that they didn't tune it to be all that, and how much is just that they gave Yuffie way too much stuff.
That final boss is fucking absurd.
That final boss actually is legit hard. Yeah,
we'll get to that.
It took me 3 tries. I was shocked that it took me that many attempts to do anything.
It took me quite a few tries as well. Yeah.
We should describe the structure of this, right? Like, what you actually do.
Before we get onto that, I want to talk about Yuffie's characterization in this game. So when I mentioned that, like, in the original game, she was kind of bratty and just kind of annoying. And in this DLC, none of her personality traits changed too much. As in, they didn't change the core things of what make her who she is. Like, they just made her way more endearing. So, like,
I was actually kind of surprised, because you know, that scene before the last boss of Chapter 1, where she's standing on the rafters and making a big show of herself. That's basically a remake of a scene from Dirge of Cerberus.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait. Is that the scene where she does New Cutie Honey? where she goes and she says, "Sometimes I'm a ninja, sometimes I'm this, but who am I really?" None of you get that reference, or that's New Cutie, honey? I guess not.
Yeah, it's like...
Yeah.
I mean, I don't
mind.
get the exact reference you're making. But
It's an anime. It's an anime show
the...
where she changes clothes and there's a lot of nudity. You all had different. You all had different teen years than I did, I guess.
Yeah. So basically, Yuffie, none of her character traits change too much. Instead, they just like, because of a very good voice performance by Suzuki Young, does a great job. And because of just like the way she's written, she becomes much more like endearing. Yuffie has always been like really cocky. She always like describes herself with honorifics, like, "Oh, I'm the great ninja Yuffie," or "I'm the single white rose of Wutai," and she always like acts like she knows everything, and like
she's a brat.
She can do everything. Yeah. But they portray it as like a really endearing trait, where it's like she's constantly underestimated and looked down on for being like the youngest party member, and so her cockiness is just her kind of like rebellion against that. A kind of like, no, actually, I can do everything that everyone else can do, and I can do it a lot better. So they just make her a lot more endearing, and she's just really, really fun. Like, and that's what
it's less that Yuffie's changed and more the tone surrounding her has changed, because
exactly.
Yuffie isn't the reason that people dislike Dirge Service.
No.
But,
I think what they did successfully this time is that Yuffie scenes are actually funny. Where she's got a lot of...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this is more of a comedy DLC than anything else. I mean, like, there's a moment where
there
Roche...
are some lines...
God, yes.
There are some lines in FF7 original that are kind of funny, but most people will miss them because a lot of people won't have Yuffie in the party. Like, so when you're recruiting Vincent, like, basically every party member has like a fairly normal line in response to him, but then Yuffie says something like, "Oh, this is boring story number 1," and I just read that, I was just like kind of cracked up, just compared to like the other party members' lines. But yeah, she had some fun lines in it. It's just most people missed it. Now that she's like front and center, they just do a great job of portraying Yuffie like so well. So I'm really happy with that.
Yeah. So what I was trying to say, like, this DLC is mostly. Yeah, it was mostly like comedy segments. She's mostly underestimated by everybody. There's a running gag where she insists that she's not a kid. It's basic like spunky anime character stuff, but I think it's done a lot more successfully this time.
I thought it was super funny when they had like the Corneo lackeys say like, "Oh, this girl is so hot," and then Yuffie's first like basking in it, and then they turn to like Neo. They're like, "We don't give a fuck about you." I thought that's kind of funny.
I thought it was funny when Yuffie and Sonen are sneaking into Shinra with their secret identities, and they're obviously dressed like ridiculous Final Fantasy anime people, and everyone around them is dressed like they just look like basic Unreal Engine 4 assets. They don't look like they belong in a Final Fantasy game at all. And they're like, which one do you think is sneaking in here? Like, Scarlet sees Yuffie immediately, and they think that they managed to get something past her. And you're dressed like a ninja. Do you think that she didn't notice that you're a ninja from Wutai? The one country that has ninjas.
And Scarlet becomes, like, basically the only, like, competent Shinra executive.
We'll see.
Well, yeah, like, Scarlet is, like, actually a really good villain in this. Because I really like how much of a bitch she is, in the way that like every time they think they've got the upper hand on her, she just kind of like acts all really smug, like, "Nah, I'm not worried about these people."
Techno,
whatsoever.
do you simp
and she
for
always
Scarlet?
has something to come back with them. No, really.
You don't simp for Scarlet? You're not the guy crawling on the ground that she puts her legs up on?
I mean, like, she's cool. She's just.
I think you
fine.
simp for Scarlet. Like, I think that's what's coming out here.
I mean, like, Scarlet's fine. Like, I think my favorite Shinra just because he's funny as hell.
Who was it? Sorry, that cut out again. This fucking
Heidegger.
My favorite executive is still Heidegger, just because he's funny as hell and because he's voiced by Bender. But yeah, Scarlet was done pretty well here. Like she's never really had many opportunities to actually be much of a villain outside of the slap fight in 7 OG, which is still my favorite part of that game.
Is it?
It's well, not my overall favorite, but it's one of my favorite parts.
Oh yeah, you simp for Scarlet and Tifa, so that would be your favorite part of that game. It's everything you've ever wanted.
Of course, exactly. You worked it out.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah. The last thing I'm gonna say before we get onto the spoiler territory is Fort Condor is great. Fort Condor is basically the triple triad of this game, and I couldn't be happier with how they did it.
I should describe what Fort Condor is. That's the mini game that they've added in. It is actually an evolution of an original Final Fantasy VII mini game, which sucked ass.
That sucked.
Yeah, it was kind of like a real.
This is actually playable.
Yeah, it was kind of like a real-time strategy sort of thing, which I think I joked years ago. I don't know if that was on a podcast or what, that Final Fantasy VII predicted the kind of lane-based sort of MOBA thing, and that's what they've done. They've basically made Clash Royale, and they've made a Final Fantasy VII game out of it.
Mm.
And
it's
fine.
Fort Condor
works.
I think it's really fun. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed playing Fort Condor, and I think that if they are going that route and they're gonna make it the triple triad of the 7 remake series, where like you'll be able to like run into random NPCs and fight them in Fort Condor, and that's how you're gonna get extra materia, then I'm perfectly happy with this. So if Integrate is them showing off how they do with it.
Okay.
I do quite like how the units in Fort Condor are just just the enemies from the original Final Fantasy VII. They're just like those models, really, really blocky polygons and all.
Are they actually? They're not the PS1 models. I would have noticed that. I think they're a little bit upgraded, right?
I think
they're better than that.
Yeah.
I think they've been up-resed, but yeah, it's still really.
They're based on the PS1 models.
PS1 like.
Yeah, they're not the full HD-ified version of the PS1 models that we have, but maybe they're like something in between. You can actually fight.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Yes.
I was just gonna mention like another point before we get onto spoilers that I really want to bring up. I love the soundtrack in this.
Oh yeah, it's great.
All the Happy Turtle themes are so funny. But anyway, carry on.
Do you have the Yuffie battle theme stuck in your head? Because I have the Yuffie battle theme stuck in my head.
Yeah.
It's really catchy. I wanted to go back to Fort Condor. You can actually face off against several Avalanche members and Roche. Roche, the motorcycle guy from the original game, or well, from the remake. Roche has now come to Sector 7. He's looking for Cloud. I'm not sure if he wants to fight him or fuck him. Could be both. Cloud, unfortunately, is not answering his calls. I feel bad for Roche.
Yep.
He's too busy being off with Aerith.
Yeah, I mean, you could have... You know what happened? Cloud met Sephiroth, and, there's just no room in his heart for another male rival. Once you've had the best, Roche just ain't it. He just ain't it.
That sounds about right.
I did want to go over the structure of this demo a bit. Yes, SomeColorMage?
Like, when it comes to Sephiroth, it's obvious that whenever there's romantic tension, he wants to fuck Cloud. Whereas with Roche, you'd still be questioning whether he wants to fuck Cloud or the
Oh, he wants to fuck Cloud.
Yeah.
He wants to do it on a motorcycle. Yeah. That's the difference.
Yeah. I think Blue's interpretation is correct.
Yeah. I wanted to go over the structure of this demo a bit. It is not all just a running dungeon bit. There is one... It starts out early enough with Yuffie alone. You fight a few enemies, then you go to the Sector 7 slums where you have a town segment. You can do some side quests. Then most of the rest of it is just dungeon after dungeon until you then go and fight the final boss, which we will now get to now with spoilers. Who wants to go and talk about some spoilers? Let's talk about some spoilers.
I hate Nero the Sable. I hate Nero the Sable. This is the one part of the whole episode that I just did not like. Like, here's the thing. Like, I have no disrespect whatsoever for like the voice actor for this guy, But I do have a lot of disrespect for the writing, where he's basically, I am the darkness, the dark, dark, dark.
He could have
basically fucking Xehanort. Like, he's fucking Xehanort Ansem. Like, for the people who said, oh, Final Fantasy VII Remake ends with a load of Kingdom Hearts bullshit, and I actually didn't agree with that. I defended it. I said, like, I mean, just because Nomura is the guy in charge doesn't necessarily mean that everything is all another KH thing. No, Nero Disable is straight out of Kingdom Hearts. He even has the fucking purple blast that seems like the fucking I forgot what it's called. This seems like a heartless blast, and everything he says is darkness, darkness.
Well, he also says
darkness.
He also says brother.
He says
he's really in love with his brother. I would say that his performance isn't horny enough for me. Is my problem, because he is a very explicitly horny character. He's got S&M stuff happening around him.
Voice actor. Is it the same one? Is it Cerberus?
No, they've changed.
Yeah, he did sound the same to me.
Much like Yuffie, Nero and Weiss haven't really changed much from the Cerberus, which, I mean, Yuffie's case it's fine comic relief, but yeah, with Deep Ground, we get to run face first into the in-text subtext. Subtext.
Yeah.
I have the same. Like, I have the same opinion of this game as I do of the original game. Sorry, not the original game, but of the base Final Fantasy VII Remake. And my opinion is just, it's extremely good up until that very ending bit, which, to be frank, they could have just cut out the whole ending, and it would have been exactly the same. They could have ended 7 Remake with the motorball fight.
And that sucked. You didn't want to end on that. That was a crap
I mean,
boss.
they could have done it. They could have done it differently. Anyway, but in this one, they could have literally just said, you know, they end it at the Scarlet mech suit fight, and let's say they make the mech suit a little harder. Let's say like the mech suit is what kills Sonnen, and it would have been the exact same story. Why the fuck did we need this random fucking boss fight that's stupidly hard, that doesn't seem to connect to anything at all? There is no reason for this to be here. Like,
well, you have to drag back all of Final Fantasy's most embarrassing moments. So that means the Svevets, and that means, unfortunately, Nero the Sable, who is one of the whole, you know, just one of the most hilariously embarrassing parts to happen.
The Deep Ground Soldiers are actually kind of fun to fight. Like, that's the one part of the whole, like, Deep Ground section where I'm like, this is alright. But then it's just like, as soon as Nero the Sable gets in, I just feel like I'm playing a totally different game. And it's just like, I don't know why the fuck this is here. This had no reason to be here. And then as soon as it's done, we do get a genuinely good ending. Like, fair play to him. That death scene was actually pretty sweet. Like, they handled the death scene alright.
Oh yeah, I should...
They handled the death scene alright.
I should go over Sonen's character a bit. He doesn't have much of one, and his voice actor is... his voice levels are a little too low, so I can never hear anything he was saying the entire DLC. He is a Wu-Tai soldier, and he has a sister that looks just like Yuffie. Like, exactly like Yuffie, which is... Which means there's 3 Yuffies in this game now. We have Yuffie, we have Kiri, and we have Sonen's sister. The 3 Yuffies.
And Yuffie gets to meet Kiri as well, which is... Yeah. I thought that was funny.
That was funny.
Yeah, and kick her ass at Fort Condor.
Yeah, she sucks at Fort Condor. Surprising.
She even admits to cheating, and she sucks at it.
How do you cheat? I don't understand what she even did to cheat. Because she seemed like she had no idea what she was even doing. And because I had no idea what I was doing, and I beat her.
Yeah. Yeah, but like, I don't know. I think Sonnen was actually fine. Like, for the time he was there, they did a good enough job in making him fairly endearing, and like, you know, you can see him as like kind of like a big brother to Yuffie in a way, which is kind of his role. So they have enough that the death scene feels somewhat impactful, where you're like, oh, I see why Yuffie is really affected by this, even if I'm not that affected by it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Sonnen is a real one. He will revive you if you die. And as far as I'm concerned, like, that makes him a real one.
I wasn't like massively moved by Sonen's death because I expected it. like I kind of knew he wasn't gonna make it through this DLC, and B, like we didn't get enough time with him to be all that attached to him. But I see why Yuffie would be moved by a moment like that, because like
and
that was done really well as from a cinematography standpoint. Like the bit where like he just shoves her up against the wall to save her from the Nero the Sable attack, and then she just stares him in the face and he's just dead with like a with a stab wound. That's a really, really good death.
A stab wound through the shoulder, though. It was really weird. Like, it was nowhere near his heart. I'm like, that didn't look totally fatal to me. Well, then Sable hit him with a whole bunch of other shit.
Yeah, it did sound like he did get stabbed several times, so...
Yeah, I think, like, the only real disappointment I have with the DLC is the fact that, like, they introduced Weiss and Nero for basically no reason other than to say, by the way, they were here this whole time, right? And
they're still canon.
So much. And also like
that last end of chapter 2 bit, all the way from Sonon getting killed to Yuffie escaping the Shinra building just to see Sector 7 collapse right in front of her. That was all really well done.
It was very well done. Like, I think once from everything up until the Nero the Sable the fight begins to when the Nero the Sable fight ends is all really good. Like, I'm happy with all of that stuff. But my other like somewhat disappointment with it is just the fact that like Yuffie's quest to find the ultimately leads nowhere, which I don't have a problem with the quest leading nowhere. Like, I don't have a problem with the fact that, like, she gets there and there's a massive gut punch where, like, the information was incomplete and what she was looking for wasn't there at all. The only problem I have is, like, how does that relate to the rest of the story? Like, how does it relate to the story knowing that she went on a fool's errand quest to Midgar and lost her, basically, big bro? Like... those are my only two disappointments. Like I'm happy enough.
The whole the ultimate materia doesn't exist yet thing does make the entire thing feel kind of pointless, except for the epilogue, which is continuing on from the very end of the base game.
Right.
But of course that bit isn't really related to Yuffie.
Right.
I'd say it's more about Yuffie's character growth.
Yeah,
I mean, she has more of a tragic backstory now, and she's ready to join Avalanche.
Right. Yeah. I agree with that. Like, if the purpose is just to give Yuffie more of a character arc, then it definitely achieved its purpose. Now, so lastly, we'll get to the scene at the very end. The scene which is like the 5 party members as they're going towards Calm. And I think I really, really love this scene. And the reason I love it is just that, like, the characters in Final Fantasy VII Remake, the main characters, are so good and they're so well characterized that, like, the moments where you just see them interacting with one another as people become really endearing and enjoyable moments. Like, seeing Tifa teach Aerith how to hitchhike, that was cool as hell. Like, it, just, and seeing, like, how they all boarded the, what's it called? Chocobo Bill. Like, they brought him back, like, the guy from Chocobo Farm, and how he's now, like, trucking them to Calm. Like, just moments like that just become, like, really fun moments. So, I loved that scene.
Okay.
I guess, before we get to the super spoiler stuff, the stuff that one person editing on the wiki somehow managed to associate with a CIA plot.
Wait, what? Okay. What?
Yes, seriously.
Okay.
We can get to that later. Has anyone here done the new super boss fight, Weiss?
I have not, because I did not import my save from PlayStation 4 when I went and I upgraded. Yeah. I forgot to...
I'm gonna do that.
So I don't have option.
I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna write the boss guide on it. By the way, I've written the guide for the whole of Intergrade, so you guys can check that out. But anyway, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna write the boss guide for it. The only reason I haven't yet is because another game that I also cover released the day after, and that game is Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, which is an incredible game, which you guys should all check out. But check out Intermission first. Intermission is very good.
But yeah, that fight does look fun, but I'm not good enough at the game.
Yeah, I should also mention that upgrading to the Intergrade is pretty weird. You do need to import your PlayStation 4 save in order to be able to play it on PlayStation 5, which is an arduous process that I did not feel like doing. Then to get episode Yuffie, you have to download this game, which is a PlayStation 4 version. Then you download the Intergrade stuff, which is PlayStation 5 stuff. Then finally you can play the episode Yuffie stuff. So I don't have my original save.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mess.
Yeah, that all sucks.
Anyway,
but hopefully with PlayStation 5, it'll all be streamlined for part 2 when that happens. So
my conclusion for episode Intermission is I'm gonna give it about 8, maybe 7.5 out of 10. You know, I'm very happy with everything they set up here. So as far as things like synergizing, Fort Condor, Yuffie's playstyle, and like all stuff like that, stuff that they're setting up and giving us teasers for later parts, I'm very happy with it. You know, this stuff all looks great, and the story itself, you know, as an addition to Yuffie's character arc, all great stuff. The only thing that holds me back from giving it a higher score is, first of all, the ending sucked. Like, as in,
I disagree.
Not the ending. As in, the Nero the Sable the fight fucking sucked.
Why are you always like so aggressively hating on the final bosses of these Final Fantasy VII things?
I don't know, man.
I don't think it was a bad boss. It's just the last phase is brutal. Like I don't know when Nero's opening is.
Like, I just feel like you could have done this whole intermission episode and left that out, and it would have been perfectly fine. But with that said, like that's the first thing that holds it back. The second thing is just that I don't see right now how this ties in with the rest of the story in a way that like makes you feel like really satisfied upon completing it. Like, as in, like, I'm happy that it exists as its own little episode that just adds to Yuffie's character arc. But I kind of wish like it's felt like it went somewhere beyond just let's set things up and tease for later parts that come out. Other than that, more Final Fantasy VII Remake and everything that's great about 7 Remake, as far as the combat, as far as the music, as far as the characterization, those 3 things are all here and they're all spades and they're done really well. So I think this is absolutely worth getting and worth playing if you enjoy 7 Remake. So very, very good episode.
I wasn't aware we were doing conclusions, but I guess we're doing conclusions. SomeColorMage, do you have a conclusion?
I mean, yeah, I really enjoyed Intergrade. One thing that wasn't brought up that I find really funny. Most of the characters in 7 had a second pass over them by Roberto Ferrari in the character design field, because like, yeah, there's still Nomura's designs, but since Type 0, Nomura's basically had a second guy, for character design that just improves the outfits a bit. But Nero is basically unchanged. He is pretty much identical to the Cerberus Nero. And
you can't improve on perfection, can you?
Yeah, we don't need a second pass on that jockstrap face.
Yeah. So, is that it? That's your final conclusion, that Nero is everything you wanted him to be?
I enjoy it, and Nero is about as terrible as I expected when we found Nero would be in there, so I guess that does count as expectations being met.
Okay. I guess I'll do my conclusion. I think the DLC's too expensive. It's $20 and you get about 6 hours of content, maybe 7 if you really push it. But that said, I mean, this is the only Final Fantasy content we're probably getting. I mean, Final Fantasy VII Remake content we're getting this year. And it's definitely the only one we're getting this year. Probably not much next year. Hopefully the next thing will be out by 2023. Who knows? I mean, they got to start getting the pipeline going, and now that they have the PlayStation 5 base done, we can finally maybe get this thing moving. I think it does a good job of giving you more content while still avoiding all the unanswered questions about what Final Fantasy VII Remake is going to be once you're out of Midgar. We do get to see a bit of the open world, but no idea of how that's going to work and where or any of that's going to happen. Oh, we forgot one thing when we start doing conclusions. There's a big final thing. The last scene involves a certain guy named Zach Fair coming to church. What did you make of that?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, that's it.
I don't have much to say on it.
From a story basis, I'm not quite sure what to make of this because we still don't have enough to establish what is probably the big fan theory question. Is this somehow the same timeline as we've created after we killed the Arbiters of Fate, or is this a separate timeline, a what if sort of thing?
Yeah, I think it explicitly has to be a separate timeline because Zack has the Buster Sword and Cloud has the Buster Sword, so it doesn't make any sense for them both have the same weapon.
Well, the thing for me,
you say that doesn't make much sense, but this is the same series that had 13 too, so yeah, the laws of time mean jack shit.
Well,
the thing for me is like the whole fan theory around, oh, is this a timeline? Is it not? Blah, what's that gonna do? The whole thing to me right now is just an interesting discussion to me, and that's just because like we have so little information to go on that like it's better to just wait till it comes out.
Okay.
So that's why I just I don't wade in too much on that. But I will say that the scene was nice, and Zack is voice acted a lot better this time.
I mean, he got like 3
it's
lines.
I'm happy with it.
Yeah. I guess it does make pretty clear that this is actually a plotline that they do intend on continuing, because some people thought about the way I think it was an Amora interview phrased it, that that everything else is going to stick more closely to the plot. No, this is...
Yeah, it was Katase.
Katase
said that.
It was Katase. But yeah, no, this pretty conclusively proves that, yes, this is something they're going to continue to follow through.
Yeah.
I would also mention this Zack Fair scene happens with him walking into the Sector 7 church and everybody is crying, which strongly implies this happens after a very important plot point in Final Fantasy VII. You know the one I'm talking about. So, in this, where we are with the remake, that scene has definitely not happened yet, so I don't really know what this means just yet.
You think it's after... after
Yes, after...
Interesting.
Yeah. Because what else would they all be crying about?
I didn't interpret it that way. Yeah, I mean, I didn't interpret it that way, but that's interesting.
Yeah, so...
most people I've seen thought that the people there were supposed to be refugees from the destruction of Sector 7.
Yeah, that's how I interpreted it.
Yeah, but he's explicitly looking for Aerith, and... well, fuck it. Aerith gets killed in Final Fantasy VII. We all know that. Alright?
Yeah.
There we go. And now, the fact that when he walks in...
Dumbledore dies.
Yeah, and Harry Potter is dog shit. The entire franchise.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but when he walks in and his big reunion with Aerith instead has everybody in tears, that feels like that's a response to what he was looking for. And what he's looking for is that she's not here and you're too late. And I don't know what's going to happen with Zack's storyline coming in the future.
Yeah, that's an interesting interpretation. Like, I like the idea of that.
Oh, did any of you try to go into the Seventh Heaven as Yuffie?
And I mean, it's just a gust of wind. Cause,
yeah, the Arbiters of Fate.
The Arbiters of Fate.
Yeah, they push you out. So you can't break canon, and Sonnen could not survive this DLC because sadly he is non-canon. So anyway, I think that about wraps her up. Is there any other big Final Fantasy news? Yes.
Yeah, there were 2 points that we haven't really gone over on your list yet. One we did mention briefly Male Vieira in
Yeah.
Enzuka.
And Union X.
I don't think that's
Yeah,
I don't think there's much more we can say on the first point, but yeah, Union X is finally over.
And that's about it. I mean, yeah, I don't have the energy to get into Kingdom Hearts right now.
That was a fucking confusing ending.
Yeah, as it turns out, you were Xehanort the whole time. What do you know?
Yeah, like, I think I know what happened, but at the same time, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, the Dreamwalkers are actually the souls of the dead. I mean, who didn't see that coming? That was so obvious. Anyway, so I guess that ends us there. We'll be back at some point when there's new things to talk about. Yeah, I guess that's it. Good night, everybody. Thanks for listening. Sorry about the sound issues.
Next time.
But, you know, yeah. Have a good night. Bye.
It happens.